I tell people I did it. Most people are young enough now, they have no understanding of what it was. They weren't alive at the time that this was going on. But I tell them that and they just look at me and say, no, you didn't do that. I said, yeah, I was there.
Ken Voght, previously of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, was part of something that not many people can say they were. He worked with the Corps of Engineers back in the early 70s when Niagara Falls was dewatered.
The entire channel was just rock at that point. Lots of puddles where there were low spots and the water just sat. But it was just all rock, and you had a lot of equipment, people out there on the rock doing measurements, looking at all the cracks.
How did they do it? They built a cofferdam.
Right at the head of Goat Island, the narrowest part of the channel up there, and it was just an earthen cofferdam that they built from the sides with bulldozers, hauled it in dirt and built with dirt and rock.
The initial idea behind dewatering the falls was to remove huge rocks at the bottom of the American Falls for aesthetic reasons.
So the entire project focused on ways to enhance and preserve the American Falls. It was commissioned by the International Joint Commission. The Corps of Engineers was the one contracted to do it. They began by installing a cofferdam at the top and dewatering the American Falls so they could look at all the rock fractures. They could analyze whether or not it was feasible to remove the rock at the base. But in the end, it wasn't.
So, a new idea took shape.
They decided instead to focus on tourist protection, public protection, and my role was looking at installing an alarm system. And we drilled 7 holes from the top down through the flanks of the falls. And when we were done, a crew came in and installed the alarms in each of those holes. And they would set 7 anchors in the hole. And those anchors would have wires attached to them that came up the hole to a lever at the top. And it would measure the change in the strain on those wires.
After the project was completed, the sensor implementation was initially successful. But to Vogt's knowledge, they're no longer in use. While the project has changed, the Army Corps of Engineers is still heavily involved with the iconic waterfall.
At the Army Corps of Engineers, we make sure that the amount of water diverted around Niagara Falls for hydropower doesn't detract from the scenic beauty of Niagara Falls. We use in-person audits, and we look at water gauges downstream to ensure that all the conditions of the 1950 Niagara Treaty are met. During the day, when people are here to go look at Niagara Falls, that there's at least 100,000 cubic feet per second going over the falls. That's enough to fill an Olympic pool every 3 seconds. During the nighttime, there aren't as many tourists at Niagara Falls, and because of that, the treaty allows less water to go over Niagara Falls and more water to be diverted for power.
While the Corps of Engineers continues to focus on new initiatives at Niagara Falls, it's clear that the work is rooted in deep history, one that's especially meaningful to those who've had the privilege of working there, like Voght, who remembers his time at the falls with great pride.
You know, there were hundreds of people involved in this, and I was fortunate enough to be at the tail end of it while they were doing the final phase of it. Proud of the work that everybody did. I think it was unique, and my guess is, given my age, I'm probably one of the few people alive that worked up here on this project, although I'm sure there's a few others. It's just different, and as I say, as I tell people now what I did, you know, how I spent the first 1.5 years of my life when I got out of college, they just look at me like, no, you didn't.